out there, thank you very much for joining us. I am Q, and I have a very exciting show, so I'm not going to go into all the fun openings today. I feel like it's Christmas in June, so I have to the right of me Mr. Nicholas Rekieta.
Hi.
He actually came into our Boomer studio, so nice to have you. We have Mr. Sir Tim. We decided last week we would forever refer to you as Sir Tim of the Minnesota House Parliament.
The official is the honorable.
Honor.
That's what I'm called. The honorable Tim Miller.
I can't do it. I
look honorable.
I got you guys got one more time. Could I kick people off of here?
We can ban people.
Okay, so the next person that calls me Drexel is getting banned. I am far better looking than Drexel. And
I think they were talking about the bald guy, though.
Who's Drexel? You guys have all these codes, so you're not doxing. I have no idea who I'm even talking to.
So,
and by the way, you get to say my name because I'm elected. That's just like a cheap reason.
Oh, well, I mean, you put your name out there. You are a totalitarian, so therefore we are going to put your name out there.
Fair enough.
So there you go. And then, of course, the voice that you hear that you cannot see.
Yeah, that's me.
Is Soder.
Discorporated.
So, thank you very much. So, but hey, guys, thank you very much. We worked really hard to not be late or gay. So, and thank you so much, Nick, for working so hard on that, and he did. We are going to have to sit here and watch him stuff his face full of some deliciousness, but
I am tasteful in my eating. You didn't even know. I've taken like 3 bites already.
Well, no, I noticed. I definitely noticed. I could see your beard moving. So, but did Lady Rackets take care of that, or did you do that?
What?
The food.
No, that was me.
That was you.
Yeah.
He's the foodie.
Well, I know, but Lady Rackets is pretty good too, from what I hear.
I made braised beef short ribs and
braised beef short. Well, you came back from Texas and you were just on it.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic.
But to be fair, no, just go ahead.
It's gonna be a good show. It's gonna be a fantastic show. And come on in. I thought Drexel was the one on the bottom left. Bottom left. I'm trying to. Yeah. You
Brady Bunch
really?
Look down into
you
the
must
left.
be a real regular. So yeah.
To be fair, I am Drexel, but I'm wearing a lot of baby powder today.
yeah. You're white faced Drexel.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Oh my God! I'm sorry. Can I interrupt? I did. I'm down in Texas, and I stopped in to visit with my grandmother for a little bit.
That was nice.
Yeah, it was wonderful of me. I'm definitely with that.
A good guy.
Yeah. I'm a good guy. And so I'm watching this commercial, and it's a sunscreen commercial, and it's Shaq and this little scrawny white guy, right? And they have the nose. You remember like the 80s? They had the nose sunscreen thing?
Yeah.
So they had the white noses. And then it cuts to Shaq, and he's got the white nose, and it cuts back to the little, like, I mean, we're talking like this guy is white as can be. He's got the red hair and very, very fair skin. And he's got a streak going across of the white sunscreen, right?
Right.
And I couldn't hear what they were saying because since we were watching the Game Show Network, no one cares what's actually said. But he says something along the lines of, Shaq, that's not enough. You're gonna have to go. You're gonna get in trouble with the sun or whatever. So it pans back to Shaq, and he's suddenly got the nose and then this much of white, of
zinc
white.
oxide, if you want to know what it is.
And I'm like, oh, please do it. Please do it. They cut back to the white guy, and his face is like full white, right?
Yeah.
And they cut back to Shaq, and I'm like, here it comes. And they didn't.
Oh,
they didn't do it.
They
cowards
missed an opportunity.
They were a forehead short of full white face. I was so mad. I was like, come on, do it. Just do it. Nut up and do it.
That could have been, they could have won an Oscar with that one. That could have won awards.
Well, the next thing, it panned back to the white guy, and he was in full white body. Like,
wow.
It looked disgusting. Bathing in yogurt.
He could have been in Minnesota.
He could have looked like me when I take my shirt off.
Right, in December. Well, guys, thank you very much. Hey, we appreciate you guys here. We see a couple of new folks. You guys must be here with Nick. So Thank you very much for joining us. While you are here, please press the little button down below and subscribe. We've got some pretty cool, exciting things to talk about, and we needed our good friend Nick here to help us so that we didn't get ourselves in legal trouble. So thank you so much. Yeah, it's about to go down. And so fantastic to have you. But first, before we get started, so we were talking about boomers and how much boomers have really destroyed America. And this is baby boomers. So these are the people just slightly older than you, Tim.
I've been asking around because I felt like you were staring at me, and I'm like, am I? But no, I thought it was maybe baby boomers, but you have a lot of presumed connotations with that.
Well,
you're going to have to explain some of those. Well, I was born in 65, so I'm right off the tail end of it.
Well, you're kind of.
I have a little bit of boomerness to me.
I think there are.
Speaking of, what was the make and model of your first car? What was your first dog's name, and what month and day were you born? Just for purposes of the stream.
Only one of those questions. I don't know, two of those will do.
I'm thinking, wait a minute. You don't know. The last four of your social while you're at it, too.
Oh, my goodness.
But Soder, so you wanted to kind of get in on this a little bit just because you got a little bit frustrated, and I usually have a little bit of a rant. And so
well, thanks, buddy.
I thought, you know what? I wanted to give you an opportunity to get some things off your chest. So hit us with it.
Well,
if you call Tim a cuck, though, we're going to kick you off.
Oh, thanks for reminding me. Tim, Nick says lead with your mistakes, and so this is your mistake, Q.
Put you on the show?
I want to apologize for last week.
No apology necessary. It's just sort of like a turn towards the end. It was a bit awkward. What
did you call him a cuck?
I did.
No, did you call me one? Or he made some comparison. He goes,
"Are you a cock?" Was my question.
There was no question. You said, "So you're a cock."
Okay, so you're a cock. So I felt really bad as I was driving home last night. I was like, I found a line and I crossed it.
Yeah.
I just by a mile. So I wanted to apologize in case
So how exactly was this my fault?
Because you had me on the show.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, you know what? I apologize, world. So as you noticed, we took his microphone away today. Well, we gave him the microphone. We took his camera away. So he will no longer be allowed to show his face here ever again.
Oh, thank goodness. Everyone must be happy about that.
Just like that, our subscribers went up 30%. Okay, so you may continue.
Okay. Well, at church one week, well, specifically this last week, came across a couple guys. They were talking about whether or not to welcome certain individuals into the church.
Okay. Like black people?
It's centered around whether or not their shirts were tucked in or not.
Okay.
Because then they wouldn't be able to know if someone was carrying a gun on their waist. They didn't know if someone's carrying a gun, if they should be welcoming or tell them they should go find another church or something to visit.
The great tucked-untucked schism of 2019.
Oh, right. It was.
There's one brand of untucked shirt that like young professionals, whatever they call them these days,
non-boomers,
dressed in the dress shirts that are untucked. That's what I think. I would
millennial boomers.
I would not allow them in church. Definitely.
Yeah, they're made to be untucked.
They're made to be untucked.
I want like 10 of those.
Yeah,
not to wear.
It's from yeah.
It just floored me that these guys were talking about whether or not to let someone into our church to worship with us or learn more about Christ based on whether or not they thought they had a gun.
Well,
/ threatening. It's like, what, if someone's going to hurt us, you guys stopping someone and telling them to go away isn't going to stop them. You're probably going to die.
What you're saying, I just want to be clear.
All right, yes.
What you're saying is that if a guy shows up to shoot people in a church and the guy at the door stops him and says, "Whoa, that shirt is untucked. I'm going to have to ask you to leave," that he won't shoot up the church then? Or that
from their conversation, that sounded like what they thought would happen.
What sort of imagination is it that
that
if
would
you
stop
see
that would stop every shooter?
If you see an untucked shirt, it means that they're carrying into the church.
I mean, that's how I do
Well,
You don't tuck your shirt in. What do you tuck over the gun or under the gun? This is weird.
No, I'm pretty sure that when he carries, Tim speaking, he probably carries in a suspenders fashion.
Oh, okay.
He strikes me as a suspenders type guy.
No, not at all.
Yeah, like right there.
No, I carry.
The 1987.
Yeah, like,
no, I have
in the heat of the night type look.
I have an inside and an outside holster, all depending on the weight of my body at that given point in time. if I've gained a little bit of weight, then it's the outside holster. Otherwise, it's on the inside.
Jay Venom says, "I keep hearing cucked and uncucked." Wow. This was advertised as a family show, but
I don't remember making that claim. But
I don't either. But okay, so sorry. We
Well, that's about it. It floored me that our churches were told we need to be welcoming to people.
Yeah.
And then this conversation. It just blew my mind.
Well, it's just an obscure conversation. Should we have people that come in with untucked shirts because they might be carrying? That just seems an out of left field sort of conversation that you're having. It seems
I
like
maybe walked into the middle of it, but it was
there's plenty
just
of reasons
strange.
to complain about strangers coming into your church. That seems like an obscure one.
I don't think there are reasons to complain about strangers coming into your church.
Oh, there's always reasons when a stranger
Why
comes
would
into
you
church.
complain about a stranger coming into church?
I don't. You can't tell me that people walking into a church that no one knows, they don't go like, "Who's that person?"
Well, strangers are just friends you haven't met yet.
Well, that was nice. let's do it. Let's do a weekday morning. PBS show for children.
If the centurion had walked up to Jesus and his bronze armor had been tucked into his little leather skirt, then they would have known he wasn't carrying a spear, and Jesus would have turned him away. It was perfect.
It was a sword.
It was a sword.
Sword.
Is that what it was? It was a sword. So okay, so now you done it, Sir Tim.
I did.
You done it. So you come at me or come at us, and you say that you don't agree that on the premise that they shouldn't turn people away based on the fact that they may or may not be carrying. But as an elected official, we've had conversations on this very show that you say that people shouldn't be allowed to do certain things or shouldn't be allowed certain liberties, because if they do, then it might lead to other things.
Okay, give me an example. You're dying in a sea of generalities here. What are you talking about?
You are a generality, my friend. I mean, seriously. No.
Now I know why they brought you in.
Specifically general.
That sounds like a fancy way of saying cuck.
But this is a continuation from last week, and you know it. Because you started talking about libertarians. You said libertarians always lead to what was the word he used?
Totalitarianism?
No. It wasn't totalitarianism. Anarchy.
Yeah.
He said so you can't be a libertarian because that's going to lead you to anarchy.
That is not what I said.
That's what you. I'm glad it's on wax.
I said I'll repeat what I said, because this is how I always say it. I said that the difficulty with libertarianism is that it leads you in the direction of eventually leading towards anarchy. So I didn't say everyone who's a libertarian is an anarchist.
That was a complete generalization.
Wow.
Complete. I'm not here to. I'm actually here. I'm tired. I've been working all week.
No kidding.
So I don't want to beat up on you. So I brought in a hired hand today.
Wow. Mr. Krabby Pants over there.
So,
oh my goodness.
I brought in a hired gun.
You brought in a hired.
Yeah. So we've got a sharecropper here by the name of Nicholas Rekieta, and he'll be taking care of all of my heavy lifting today.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
So before we get started, though, okay, because all jokes aside, we like to have fun. There's not a single person on here today, technically, that I don't like. I like everybody here, so that's cool. So, but we got to get to something, because I think I sent the article to you guys. I think you guys are looking at it. This deal down in Oklahoma, this opioid, they call it a crisis. I'm really not quite sure how to look at it. But anyway, so they are suing Johnson & Johnson right now because of the opioid epidemic that we're experiencing. People are overdosing, people are addicted to it and things like that, which I get in one hand that the reason why there's such a huge fight is because these people are becoming addicted, and they've shown that the drug companies were specifically trying to get these people addicted. Okay,
The one I always forget the name of it, but the one pharmaceutical company,
Purdue.
Purdue,
Okay,
they were the ones that had the time release Oxycontin.
well, Johnson and Johnson is definitely not. I mean, from what I saw, did you read the article?
I heard
Yes.
Rush Limbaugh decomposing in the ground is time release Oxycontin. Just kidding, Rush. I love you, buddy, but that joke was not going. That was not going to. I couldn't pass that up.
So we dealt with this in the state of Minnesota this year, and we actually passed a bill that puts $250 million towards the. I'm seeing motions. What?
10.
Oh.
I want to be like you today. Thank you.
So
You want to be like Miller?
So there's the lawsuit against Johnson and Johnson. There's the lawsuit against Purdue. There's probably going to be some other lawsuits, and they're going to be somewhat akin to the lawsuits of Big Tobacco. You're going to see a lot of parallels through this.
Now tell us about that, because that was before my time.
Okay, so the Big Tobacco, the tobacco lawsuits went after the tobacco companies. States started suing, and they basically said, you knew all along, you had proof that smoking causes cancer, and yet you denied it, and you even propagated it, and on and on and on. And they ended up coming up with settlements. It took several years. Like, how many years was that? That was a good 8 years or so it took.
Yeah, it was a while.
But the settlement ended up being, the number that sticks in my mind, like $190 billion or something like that. It was a crazy number, and it was distributed among states that had the lawsuits. It actually started with the Attorney General out of Iowa, kind of started all this. I forget his name now, but they ended up settling years later, and it created a model that you're seeing in other places to lesser degrees, to where government basically sues a big business to the point of them capitulating. So like 3M here in Minnesota this last year agreed to a settlement for that one plastic that's in water bottles, or
the BPA thing?
I forget what it is, but
Okay.
they settled in a huge chunk of money under threat of it was basically going to cost them a lot more if they continued to fight. And then certain things came with it. So it's a model, basically, in my opinion, it's a new model of taxing. It's just through the courts instead of through the legislature. Now, certainly if someone's doing something bad, they have to be held accountable. What I see coming now with the opioids is we have a problem with opioids being abused. And by the way, the model, like Purdue going out there with the time released, there is evidence that they probably did act in a way to maximize their market share at the risk and health of people in the United States. So there's probably an accountability thing there. But what's also happening, this is not a simple faceted thing. There's lots of different pieces to this. So, for example, you have the model by which someone takes oxycodone for because they had like knee surgery, and they can become hooked on it, and then it's a progression to where they're eventually dying from drug overdose and stuff like that. And that's certainly a problem, and that's something that we need to fix through the system. However, if you look at the numbers, at the statistics as they call it, one of the biggest problems we have with opioids is the illegal sale and distribution of it. So people are buying it from people that are getting prescriptions, and then they're selling it to people that are hooked, or they're selling it themselves. There's lots of different ways in which that's happening, and the abuse is happening in that. One of the things that's not being talked much about the opioids, but when you get around EMS and stuff like that, is the fentanyl problem. So there's all these things that are kind of mixed together, but it's coming out as these lawsuits. Here in Minnesota, we passed legislation to where there's basically going to be a tax on all these organizations to pay for drug rehabilitation to the tune of $250 million. This Johnson & Johnson one, I didn't see in the article if there was a total dollar amount proposed. Was there? It's into the billion. They just said billions of dollars, right?
Right.
Multi-billion dollar. A friend of mine who's a little more connected in Health and Human Services in the Minnesota legislature, he told me that the Purdue lawsuit, maybe he meant all these that are coming up, but the Purdue one could be approaching $1 trillion settlement. and then that's going to be distributed throughout the states. What could possibly go wrong with that? You know what it is? The attorneys. The attorneys get all the money, don't they? Don't they, Rekieta Law?
I mean, I wouldn't suggest
you would
anything
hope so,
less.
right? That's right.
They did all the hard work.
I gave you kind of a quick overview from a legislative viewpoint, but what did you want to talk about specific to the lawsuit?
I mean, so as far as that goes, I guess it's tough for me because, and I know I'm about to piss some people off, but this is a space for free speech, right?
Yep.
Not all these people took drugs,
right?
That came with a possibility of habit forming, right? And many of them continued to take the drugs long after the pain had subsided, but it made them feel a certain way, right? My concern is that it's going to get to be very difficult for people who need these drugs to get them. Now, I understand completely that there are some people who that the drug companies need to be punished because they specifically they worked hard to get people addicted to these things, right? I mean,
well, no.
This is tough.
Here's
y'all.
the thing.
I don't think you're appreciating what we've done here.
In a litigious society, we always assume someone's at fault, and you have to assume, which there is an element of this also. But understand, there's just as big of what was a systemic problem. And here's a very quick snapshot example of what I'm talking about. Okay. So you go into the doctor, you have surgery, you have something else, you have back pain, and you say, I'm hurting, okay? And the doctor says, I need to prescribe you something, okay? Now, they were kind of compelled and pushed, whether it be through the insurance system or other reasons, to prescribe opioids. That's where they went to. A couple different things.
Should have been prescribing weed.
That's every single one of our shows always ends up towards weed.
Go ahead.
No, we'll get there. We just always end up towards weed on this show. But I know. But anyway, so there's two things. Number one, they actually weren't telling people that these are rather addictive, especially the time release, where that's a whole thing. The other challenge they have, and this is a system that probably people didn't realize. So you go in and you say, what's your pain on a scale of 1 to 10? And they give you some examples, but that's going to be different from me to Soder to you. You know, what is a 5 to me is probably a 15 for Soder in pain, right? So in any case, so in any case,
he's not wrong.
But you have this level of pain. They say, here's your prescription. Now go take it. Now you come back with the follow-up. How's your pain? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it the same or something like that? Now, again, that's all relative. Even among myself, I'm feeling better about it, so I say it's a little bit better. But what happens is insurance reimbursement was actually tied in part to this. So if I go to the doctor and say I have a pain level of 8, okay, and they give me pain medication, and I come back and I say that didn't help me at all, okay, then they didn't help you prescriptively, and so their reimbursement gets tied into a rating system. You get paid less money basically for that. So they're incentivized to make absolutely darn sure that your pain goes away. So what do? They're quick to prescribe. Okay? So that was part of the systemic problem. I also talked to my doctor and I said, listen, if you have someone that goes to an oncologist because they have cancer and they're going to have chemotherapy, they're going to have these other things, they kind of sit down and have a consult. This is what it means. These are side effects. This is what you can expect. But then when it came to opioids, it was, here's a prescription, go home and read the bottle and take according. It was a very quick thing, not realizing how serious some of these opioids actually were. A lot of those things are being changed now. Again, you can't really sue someone for that stuff, but a lot of those things are the important parts of getting this fixed. But there is a concern for people that do legitimately need opioids to regulate chronic pain, and their fear that they're going to have difficulty getting this is well-founded, because when Johnson & Johnson gets sued and Purdue gets sued and these other companies get sued, guess what? They have to protect their interests. They're going to pull back. They're going to pull out. Government's hand is never a gentle hand. It's always an overcompensated firm hand. They're going to make rules and regulations by which people can't get the medicines that they need.
I feel really uncomfortable with you talking about pulling out and then the government's hand. Sorry, but
You want the
Well, you and
government's hand?
Soder lately.
Now it got weird.
well, he's talking about the government's gentle hand, and I'm thinking, how is the government's hand?
I said firm hand, by the way. And I didn't go government's firm hand.
Okay, so
I want a government with the slow hand. That's all I'm saying.
but okay, so where do you stand on it then? So do you stand on the? I mean, do you stand on the side of the corporation? And it sounds like you're kind of.
No, it's not as simple. This again, in a litigious society, let's pick a side. Okay, let's pick a side and condemn the other side.
Well, in this case,
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah,
Mr. Attorney. No, but so
He'll come out fine in this.
there is fault in the pharmaceutical. There is in the pharmaceutical system. There's fault in the healthcare system as a whole. There's fault in the consumer. There's fault in people that misuse opioids. Okay, there's lots of different things. One of the other challenges is that legislation and the legal system is moving slower than dealing with this issue. And like the clinic that my wife works at, they've already put in the last couple of years processes by which it is really, really difficult to abuse that opioid. And it is there's a lot of HIPAA privacy stuff. That's one of the things that makes it a little bit difficult about knowing who's doing what. But there's systems in place to where there's kind of red flags that show up when someone's abusing opioids, and they deal with it. So a lot of the problems are being fixed already.
Doesn't that just make the street value go up, though? I mean, essentially, doesn't it? Doesn't that drive the street value up?
Yeah, but now that's something I want to touch on, because when we talk about some of this illegal versus illegal use of stuff,
well,
there is nothing that we can legislate. There's nothing that we can do to the courts that's going to keep people from wanting to use drugs illegally or inappropriately.
So, so my frustration with it, and again, I'm not coming at it from a standpoint of, I'm not coming at it from a standpoint of punishing people or anything like that. But the problem that I have with it is I feel that we have been disproportionately, we've disproportionately punished the drug dealers than we have the doctors that have overprescribed these medications, right? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the sentences that have been given to these doctors who have purposely overprescribed these medications, I mean, I read in a situation with the fentanyl, the doctor was actually given lap dances by the pharmaceutical rep who was a former stripper.
Well, I mean, you gotta sell pills.
Okay, right.
You gotta sell pills.
Okay,
This is an actual story.
This is an actual story.
What color were the
you
pills?
tell me.
Okay,
Soda shows up at your door to sell pills and says, "Look, I'll give you a lap dance."
That's my luck. If I'm the doctor, I get soda.
Who do you buy the pills from?
Okay, but the problem that I have with it is that you have people that are serving hard time for selling drugs on the street, but yet a doctor prescribes these things. People die, people get addicted. I mean, their lives are ruined, and for whatever reason, because maybe they could afford a better attorney, I don't know. But for whatever reason, they are being dealt with a much softer hand of government. So,
well, I want to make sure that I'm not saying that isn't true, but I want to make sure it's true, because if there is a doctor that is dealing opioids, okay, willfully misusing the position that they have to prescribe, then yeah, I totally agree with you. They should be prosecuted to the full extent of law of a dealer. I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, I mean, what is the Hippocratic Oath is to do no harm, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you are purposely harming people, you should never
Do
be
you mean
able
like
to
killing
practice.
them?
Kind of like doctor-assisted suicide.
And
that's
okay.
really hurting. So that's the ultimate hurt.
And look, if people decide that they no longer want to live, the fact that you, Mr. Totalitarian, feel that you have the right to tell people, no, you're going to continue to live in pain.
So
until we tell you you can die.
So if someone wants to get,
wanted to die
because
if someone wants to get hyped up on oxycodone, what's wrong with the doctor giving it to them so they can get hyped up? Hypothetically,
Preach
folks,
it.
I'm not
We
preaching.
finally got him. We got him. He's on the side of liberty. Finally. Thank goodness.
I mean,
Oh my goodness.
yeah. I mean, there we go. I'm telling you, he's sounding more and more like a libertarian every day.
No, I will disappoint you before the end of this show multiple times.
That's what she said.
He's really been making a good comeback. You know that? I've used that a lot lately. Darn if that. Too bad that's 15 years old. It's still good. It's still a good one.
Is that old?
Oh, easily, yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So Nick, where do you fall on this argument? Because you always bring a slightly more interesting perspective to these types of conversations.
Wait, so the argument of clarify.
Who's to blame? I mean, because at a certain time,
I mean, you know,
they're
the
not
answer to
prescribing
that.
these medications to
Lawyers?
children.
It's not the lawyers. Lawyers are never to blame.
No, lawyers are
We're
beautiful.
just the hired gun, right? We're the hammer that finds
Hey,
the
Rekieta
nail.
Law, can you move within 25 feet of the camera?
I can't. This camera's. It's a.
You can move the screen closer to you.
Woo-hoo!
There you go. Woohoo! Nice.
People see how messed up my hair is. Oh my god. Sunday, I was really lazy today. No, okay. So here's the thing, right? It's, the lawyers are never to blame.
Okay.
You can't blame the pharmaceutical companies because they're just trying to do what they can, sell their products, right? Who's to blame? Government is to blame.
Most cases, yeah.
Why do we have such concentrated and time release opioids on the market? Why is that the prescription? Because opium is illegal. So they take the limited amount of opium that they have, they more efficiently distribute it by condensing it, by creating synthetics, by making it more potent, and suddenly we have a drug that was not killing as many people, killing lots of people. It's time and time again the scarcity created by government.
Because at one time, didn't we grow poppy here in the U.S.?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so.
You know,
As they say, cocaine was in Coke. That's why it's called Coke.
very
Coca-Cola.
very
Well.
briefly, and I think that was after Coke was invented. It's kind of a weird wives' tale sort of story, but
I like it though.
it
Well,
was.
I choose
I'm
to
the
believe
fun
it.
police today.
know.
That's my job. Your session's over, so now it's my turn. Now it's my turn to dump on that. No, but I'm being mildly tongue in cheek here, but it really does boil down to scarcity that's imposed by government. Why is it? It's hard to get pain relief, right? And I jokingly mentioned marijuana earlier, but marijuana is a prescription for chronic pain relief. Even in Minnesota, if you can find the doctor to get you the prescription card, it is a prescription for chronic pain relief. There are lots of alternatives, but why use the alternatives when we can concentrate an effort in very low cost once you've got the development done and very effective drugs and push them on everything? I don't know. I don't know how we go about fixing the mess that is the opioid crisis. I know that making them more scarce after a lawsuit and with some new government regulation to bring opium even more illegal, that's going to be great. I know that there will be no problems with that.
Yeah, no, and that's my point. I agree with you totally with that.
Whoa.
No, I've agreed with that from the beginning. I'm not
Really?
going to just disagree with everything.
No,
Absolutely right. This is the problem with what's going to happen over the next several years. That's what I was talking about. I talked about the firm hand of government, and you're like, ooh, I got a little turned on by that statement.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is categorically false.
But that is the problem. Here's what's going to happen. Government's going to come in and regulate. I didn't say make it more scarce, but that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely it, and it's going to create more problems.
But can we get back to the point where we talk about how government created this problem?
Well, yeah, but if you drive this down to this is why we make everything just accessible over the counter. There's
That's where this bus is going. So
if you want to get off now.
Because that's where this bus is going.
Let me give you an example. So, and this is where I'm the biggest hypocrite right now. So get ready, because you call me hypocrite all the time. This is where I am going to be a hypocrite.
Uh-oh.
I don't like government agencies. I think they're the problem. Okay? I think when government agencies get involved, then trouble starts. where I'm a hypocrite is the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA approved, like on medicines and stuff like that. I actually think that's an appropriate place for insertion of the government. I think that they need to do a process by which they. Now, could it be a flawed system? Could be. Could it be a corrupt? It could be. But I'm saying that there is a system by which highly technical things go through and the FDA approves it. That was one of the problems that I had with legalizing medicinal use of marijuana, was that a legislature was deciding what should and shouldn't be used, not the FDA. That is one place where I think that it was appropriate for the FDA to be involved. So,
but hold on. The FDA approves all sorts of things that end up murdering a bunch of people.
Absolutely, because they aren't perfect. There's over time.
They're just not perfect though. They're pretty bad. If you ask me,
that's fine. I'm not here to defend them. What I'm saying is you could argue that they're flawed or that they're corrupt or things like that. But I do think that there is a place for regulation of highly technical things. That's where I break away from your rank and file libertarian. Okay,
you're for the administrative state, the fourth branch of government, the unelected fourth branch of government. You love it.
In today's society, I think that in some places it's appropriate. You can't.
I'm calling Ron Paul, and after we're done auditing,
oh no,
the
Ron
Fed,
Paul,
we're auditing you. You're getting audited after the Fed.
I hope not. I hope not. So, no, this goes back to the whole argument I had with libertarianism works in a theoretical sense. There has to be a reality to the way right or wrong, our society and our government is structured in such a way that there's some presumptions in there. And it has expanded beyond what I believe was the original intent of the Constitution. And I don't know that I even like it. I'm just saying it's a reality. So I use the example of the Affordable Care Act where everyone says repeal and just leave it alone. You can't you can't do it, not because you don't have the willpower, but because it would set off an economic crash, and it would literally kill people both at the same time.
People are going to die anyway, though.
Yeah, but
people are going to die either way.
But here's the argument I gave to when someone talked to me about how famine's coming and 1 out of every 3 people are going to die in the next 20, 30 years. I've been told that before. Okay, I looked at the person and I said, so who in your family is going to be the one that's going to die? And he actually got offended at me. And I go, why are you offended? You just said 1 out of 3 people. Chances are that he had like a family of 5 or 6. I said, odds are you're going to have at least one person die in your family, maybe multiple. So what you're saying is this famine's going to kill your family.
Hopefully it's the tastiest.
Well, when I brought it close to home, then suddenly, so we can talk in theory about it's okay if things crash and burn and people die and stuff like that.
That's why I only have big dogs. I got to make sure that I'm efficient. Yeah. I got a big family. So, so if your child died because of an act, you'd be like, well, this is part of having a healthy government, so things happen, sort of thing. People in the United States are not going to stand for that. They just aren't. Nor should they, in my opinion, but they aren't going to. So once again, I'm not sure how you managed to do this because it's contradictory. How does the government get to be both the blessing and the curse once again? Because
but you steer it in that direction, and it isn't a matter of blessing and a curse.
No, because the problem I have with it is there's literally tens of thousands of people every single year that die due to medical malpractice in this country.
Sure. Yep.
Tens of thousands of people. Far more.
Are you sure it's that number?
It's
that sounds like a lot.
It's over 100,000. I know that much. In fact, I want to say closer to a couple hundred. But anyway, the issue. Well, that might be.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Anyway, it's a lot. Thousands and thousands. Far more than are killed due to gun violence. But for some reason, we're having a discussion in this country not about the processes that are put in place that are approved by the FDA, by the way. Those processes that are approved that are killing hundreds of thousands of people.
It's according to Johns Hopkins, it's 250,000 people per year die by medical mistake. Although none of them at Johns Hopkins. It was weird how they came up.
That's right. Okay, but you're actually.
Okay, so 250,000 people that were killed using methods that were approved by the FDA, yet you're going to tell me how the FDA is such a necessary evil.
No, you are now touching on the overall theme, actually, of what we're talking about here. Opioids, this
Well, I'm
addresses.
glad that we
Here's
made
what it is.
full
Okay,
circle.
I have to, let's see, get both my hands in here. Okay, so
Billy Mays here with.
that's right. So here's what I tell people: when government is saying, "Look at this hand," you probably should be looking at this hand. Okay,
Always got to watch for the government reach around.
That's right. You do
With those
because
firm, soft hands.
here's that's right, with the firm, soft hands. So here's what you have to understand.
One hand is firm, one hand is soft.
And you brought this up with, if there's so many people dying from malpractice, why are we focusing on how many people are killed by guns? You know why we're focusing on people killed by guns?
Question: is the government right-handed or left-handed?
Ambidextrous. So
It depends on the year.
Depends
listen,
on
though.
who got elected then.
True.
That's right.
This is true.
So here's the deal, though. The reason why they are pressing for gun control, they're using the immediacy of saying, you know what it looks like to have someone shot with a gun. At least in your mind, you can have it. You play video games, you see it. You watch it on the news. You watch Law and Order, whatever. Okay, you have an idea of that it's a tangible thing. Bang bang, you're dead. Okay. They're using that to compel you to take away your freedoms of your guns. That's the whole point of it. This opioid crisis, because you even hesitated when you said crisis, because you're like, well, is crisis the right word? Some people
that's only because we use the word crisis for everything.
Anytime,
now.
but
the word has almost been cheapened.
But the opioid crisis, understand, is going to when they file lawsuits for $1 trillion, people are going to go, yeah, stick it to those pharmaceutical companies, stick it to them. Now the big difference is you could argue, other than local economies, you could do with or without tobacco companies. You could argue that one, okay?
Right.
Can you do without pharmaceutical companies?
No.
So what happens if you start doing these lawsuits? And the biggest shocker is what happens if Johnson & Johnson, I don't think they will, and this is, by the way, why they're suing, because they think they can get away with it and keep Johnson & Johnson afloat. But what if Johnson & Johnson said, you know what? We're pulling out of the drug business. We just can't do it. What the heck is going to happen then? They are going after Johnson & Johnson because they want the money that they have, not to fix the problem. So the reason why they're going after guns and not going after malpractice is it's too difficult and the return isn't there on the malpractice. The return is on the gun control. That's why they're doing it. So it isn't a matter. So when you steer it back to me saying, well, is government a blessing or is it a curse? To me, it's either nothing or it's a curse. Okay, I never personally view government as a blessing. The only time I view government as a blessing is when our military goes out and kills evil and protects my way of life. Then it's good. Okay, but that's to the extent. You'll never hear me talk. But now when you go back to, well, why do you say sometimes there needs to be the FDA, for example? I just believe in today's complex society, there needs to be some stable forces there. Okay, this goes back to my baseball analogy of why you can't bunt foul for a third strike and it not being an out. Sometimes you have to put the rules in place to make things go the right way. In our society, there is a presumption that when you throw those pills in your mouth, or you take that shot in your arm, or you take that IV bag, that there's a level of credibility with that, and there's an agency that is ensuring that credibility. Now, in our government, we've spilled over into all sorts of different things, saying that they have to inspect to make credible, which is one of the problems we have. I'm just saying that the FDA is one of those that I'm comfortable having.
But here's the question I have, and this is not hostile. The question is, are we to assume that without a regulatory agency like the FDA, that Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Pfizer would all be murdering us constantly?
Oh.
So the problem I'm having then is we're talking about how, well, this is a place where you're comfortable having an administrative body. Okay, that's fine, but why? Because the alternative is not having the administrative state saying what drugs are good and what drugs are bad. I would, without a bunch of information at my fingertips, I think I could construct a pretty solid argument to say that the reason that we have opioids as the primary pain medication is because of how hard it is, due to regulations from the FDA, to bring competing drugs to market.
And I agree with you on that, but you want this to be a black or white, all or nothing.
No, I don't. I'm trying to figure out, and I'm asking. I'm not challenging here. I'm asking. So, do we have an administrative state take this position, or do we leave it to those companies and then hold them liable when they're bad actors? Which is the better solution? I genuinely, I'm curious what you think. I know what I think, but I'm curious what you think.
Well, what I think is in some circumstances, see, this isn't that we want to label all government under the question that you asked, okay?
But I don't. I'm just asking about.
So by the way, I do agree. I believe the accountability. So the example that I give, the simple example is I have a guy, every time I knock on his door during an election year, he says, "You cannot make me wear a helmet with my motorcycle." And I said, "Well, what if the insurance company said you're going to pay double if you don't wear a helmet or you don't get insurance?" "Well, that's not fair." I go, "Why not?" Their risk goes way up when you have that. So using that example, I agree with you. Let the accountability on the other end determine what does and doesn't happen, okay? But there are circumstances, and I'm using the FDA as my example. Okay? I'm not saying it's the only one. Maybe it's not even the best example, but it's my example, okay? There is a process presumed in the FDA by which they do that. They not vetting. What's the word that I'm looking for? They make sure they go through a formal process by which drugs are approved. Now, some people argue that the FDA is too slow in that.
Well, I mean,
some people argue that they're too fast in that.
The problem with it is that it adds between $500 million and $1 billion of cost to bring the drug to market.
Well, and that's an example of, so like, let me use nuclear energy comes to mind, okay? I was told that the reason why we don't have new nuclear energy is because it will take 20 to 25 years, maybe even 30 to get it online and cost billions of dollars. And I said, how come? Because government regulation. Now, should government have some regulations over nuclear energy? Yes, but if there is too much, that's a problem.
This is a conflating and unrelated argument. I mean,
no,
the cost,
for me, it's the exact same thing.
But it's not, because we can measure the cost to bring a drug to market.
Yep.
It's $500 million to $2 billion.
Right.
That's flat out, and because this is a big problem with we know this because of the generic drug issue with the patents on pharmaceuticals. So and the people making these claims are the people paying the bills, and they have very quickly calculated out how much it costs them and how much they need to recoup. That's how they justify the price on drugs.
Right.
So they're pretty reliable. So we don't need to talk about nuclear energy. We don't need to talk about anything else. We've got a tangible cost here. It's $500 million to $2 billion that they have 20 years to catch up.
Right.
Opiates, Oxy. Rush Limbaugh has been off of Oxy for longer than that patent, right? He's been off of Oxy since the 90s.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to bring right now a competing non-opiate pain relief, it doesn't matter how good it is to market, you've got to overcome the hurdle of $500 million to $2 billion of upfront cost, which means that your $4 OxyContin pills, $4 for a month prescription of them because you've got a generic, is going to be competing against a $1,200 bottle of an alternative. So it doesn't matter what it is, and that is 1,000% due to the FDA and this scheme of how much it costs to bring something to market, and then combine it with the patent system, I guess, of giving them a 20-year window to recoup that. But that upfront cost isn't the patent system. That upfront cost is the regulatory scheme on getting approval for these drugs.
And I'm agreeing with you on that. That was my example of nuclear energy. Nuclear energy could be cheaper, but for the over-regulation of it. So the FDA, this is why it's not a black or white thing. I agree with you that there are serious challenges with the FDA, but that doesn't mean there shouldn't be an FDA. Okay, there needs to be perhaps a more reasonable one, whatever that means. Okay, all I'm saying is that there is a.
Why should there be an FDA?
Privatize the
because
FDA?
society.
Can I answer that question?
Is
because Tim doesn't believe in the inherent goodness of people. We discussed last week. He
Should there
believes
be
that man is inherently evil.
should there be building codes?
Well, there's a yes and no to that.
So you're going to build a house, right?
No, there is. There's a yes and no to
Okay,
that.
but okay, let's agree there are building codes, right?
Yep.
What government agency creates building codes?
Depends on which ones. Mostly the county.
No, they don't. They adopt building codes created by the industry. There's a big difference there. Yeah, gotcha.
No, it's not a gotcha. Gotcha. It's a sleight of hand because it's the counties. There's the building codes. At least when I was back in construction, there's like this building code structure out there that meets annually, and there's probably a regional level, a state level, and federal level.
They're like 5 years ahead of what the government regulation actually is.
Right, but they come up and they adopt new things, but it's at the county level at which they adopt building codes typically. Major cities have building codes also.
But the interesting thing is, if you go to a construction company today that's compliant with the board that creates the building codes, you're getting a house that's up to code 5 years from now, right? Like, now if you go with like a local construction company, and they might be building to code today, but there are companies out there who are creating the building codes that the counties will be adopting over the next couple of years, and you're actually ahead of the curve. We trust a lot of industries to actually use the billions and billions of dollars of expertise that exists within those industries to regulate the products that keep. I mean, if your house collapses, you're dead faster than an opium overdose. You die. So why, again, this is one of those weird things where we have said that, well, everybody or people want an FDA, they want the oversight, and we have to create this government thing. And you're talking about how highly technical it is, and I agree, it's highly technical. But why is it that we just decide that the pharmaceutical industry isn't capable of doing that? It should theoretically lower
You're
costs.
asking the question, should it be or shouldn't it be? And that's not my response is, it isn't whether it should or shouldn't be. It is. Now, what I'm saying by it is there's a presumption in our society. We can talk in theory about getting rid of these systems, but people will demand that those systems get put in place. They're demanding that there's building code. And building code goes way far beyond the consumer is. Oh,
really?
Absolutely they are. Absolutely. Now, there might be some examples.
I'm pressing X to doubt on that.
There might be examples where they don't want it, but there is a presumption when you have a man and woman married and they have 2.4 kids and they're going out into the suburbs looking for their favorite house in a new construction zone. Okay, they're walking into that presuming that house was built to certain standards. Okay.
Yeah, but no, they're presuming that the house will stay standing. I think there's a big difference.
But the next step after that is because it's built to certain standards.
And even though every single house that's on the market that's built after a certain year is built to code, what do we all have to do? We all have to hire an inspector. We all trust in all of the professionals. And if that house collapses, we're not suing the government for failing to ensure that it met code. We're suing the inspector, we're suing the realtor, we're suing the former owner, and we're suing the construction company that built it. That's how the liability always falls. Why aren't we suing the FDA on the opioid crisis? Why are we suing Johnson & Johnson?
I don't disagree with you at all. I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
So let's go to the next part of this question. So if we are suing the pharmaceutical companies, which I find it interesting that Monsanto, pretty much responsible.
We need one of those dun dun dun.
Right.
Monsanto
owns something like 90% of the technology that we use for the crops in the United States. I mean, it's a pretty high percentage.
Okay.
They're owned by Bayer, which is a pharmaceutical company. So the question is will this eventually lead to food shortages if a pharmaceutical company is responsible for a large portion of our food in the United States? I mean, so there could be unintended consequences, but I digress.
But I agree with you. I'm not for this. I'm telling you what's happening with the lawsuit. I'm not saying that's a good. This is a bad direction that it's going.
Okay, so
this is real problematic.
So right now Monsanto is being like taken to the cleaners I mean, due to this Roundup situation. So,
but here's why. It's not because of Roundup. It's because Monsanto has a ton of money that they think they can extract from them. That's what it's about.
That their lawyers are successfully
That's right.
extracting from
Don't
them.
get caught up in the tenets of what they're arguing. Look at what their objective is.
Sure.
Monsanto is a big dog. Also understand another thing they want is in theory, without Monsanto, everyone has a 50-acre farm, a pig, and a goat. Okay? And everyone's going to be happy.
What's wrong with that?
Well,
There's
technically,
nothing wrong if you have that.
But it's 40 acres.
Speaking, yeah, I'm looking for my 40 acres, and I mean, I don't need a mule. I've got a couple of those already, but I'll take a Lamborghini. You could buy me off with 40 acres and a Lambo tomorrow. Like, and I'd be.
Okay, would a reparations Lamborghini replace the? No, it's Ferrari that's got the horse. A reparations Ferrari would have to just replace the little shield on front with a donkey.
I'm down. I'm down.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to give my kids anything. Just me.
That's separate but equal, right? That's a reparations Ferrari.
Hey, man, that's a reparations Ferrari. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, no Lambo, Ferrari. Yeah. Make sure it's a black on black one.
Yeah.
There's 3 people in my family, so okay, but I digress. Golly, man. Okay, so the problem that I have with this is that, okay, so where do we go from here? Because the next step that I'm hearing about is this huge battle against gun manufacturers, right? For these mass shootings, which I think is a totally separate argument, but somehow it's being tied together. That if the pharmaceutical companies can be tied to people overdosing on these opioids, then you should be able to hold the gun manufacturers responsible for people overdosing. I mean, for mass
Overdosing
on bullets.
The problem is when all the doctors were prescribing the AR-15 to go shoot one person, and then the person irresponsibly took the AR-15 out and shot a whole bunch of people. I mean,
so they overdose.
We need to really hold the doctors who are prescribing the AR-15 single murders accountable, so we can stop the overdose, the mass shootings. It's a completely compare. And really, when Remington, it's because Remington was pushing doctors to prescribe AR-15s for all sorts of unrelated issues. Like, you go into the doctor because you've got a problem with your neighbor, right? And that's when your doctor properly prescribes you an AR-15 to go fix that problem. But see, they started letting it. The Remington was calling up doctors. They were sending up lap dancing soders over to all of the gun dealers, all of the doctors, and they're like, "Look, what you got to do is you got to get this doctor prescribing these guns for other things. So when someone comes in with a broken leg, AR-15 to go kill everybody. Somebody comes in with sleep apnea, AR-15 to shoot their CPAP machine and then their neighbors. This is the problem. It's the overreach of doctors and their overprescription, but also the real issue is that it's that evil Remington behind the scenes pushing for those misapplications of the prescription.
By the way, can we complain about CPAP machines in the future? That's it. That's
yes, we do read them live.
What's that? So anyway,
I really am interested in that. I want to hear more about that later.
We'll talk about that another time. But on this gun thing, you're going right back to my point. The reason why they're doing lawsuits against gun manufacturers is not because they really think whether or not they're some probably do. They use a lot of the rank and file to really believe this stuff. But if they go after gun manufacturers and they can't make guns, then you can't buy your gun. Okay? If you can't buy your gun, this is all the gun control thing in the United States. I'm glad that people are truly taking that issue as serious as it is. I mean, the general population is taking that issue as serious as it is. You have big government. By the way, just because I'm not a purist libertarian doesn't mean I don't agree with a lot of the things you're talking about.
You're coming around.
Yeah. I told you why I can never come around. I told you that last week. So that's what she said.
Oh, we're gonna get copyright struck from whoever owns the office.
That's right. But
maybe we
in
get
case,
Steve on here.
But no, seriously, there is a definite threat to gun ownership because of fundamental Second Amendment rights that have to be defended. Government has gotten big enough where they cannot afford for us to own our weapons, and that's what they're trying to take from us.
But-
So all
okay,
this stuff
but-
is to steer towards that.
Okay, but I get that. But okay. So doesn't that then bring us back to government being the center of the issue? Because I've bought a gun or two, and every time I've ever gone to buy a gun, I was given permission before that gun owner or the store owner could sell me a firearm.
Right.
He had to get permission from the FBI first. He had to call into this number. He had to give them my information,
For
my
handgun.
personal information.
Handgun.
Rifle,
you don't have to do that.
well, for in different states, different things.
Right. Yep,
But
that's true.
but you still have to no. You still have to call in. You just don't have to have a permit to purchase. You still have to call in, even for a rifle. It has to be called in. You cannot sell any firearm.
It's just your nick or whatever they call it. Are you a criminal? That's all that it is.
I get it, but they were still given permission to go ahead and sell that firearm.
Yeah.
There had to be permission first, right? And so the government is granting the permission for these people to purchase these firearms, and then if they go out and they do dubious things with them, isn't the government partially to blame if they bought it legally?
I think we should sue the government.
That's one of the
constantly.
misnomers. 99.
If I can sue a company for selling a product that someone misused and took more than they should have, if I can sue a company for doing that, can't I then sue the government for giving permission to some nut job?
You didn't let me finish my sentence. 99% of crimes with guns are with illegal guns. Okay, that's one of the things. That's why we get so upset about all these gun control things. Is you're controlling law-abiding citizens who aren't committing the crime. I didn't hear what he said.
He said, "No gun is illegal."
That's actually an interesting conversation.
Every terrible instrument of war is the American birthright.
Dang.
Wow.
Soder.
That was
I'm
deep.
digging it.
So
I see a new T-shirt coming.
Well, that's a quote by one of the founding
one
fathers.
of the things that I have to defend
Jefferson.
myself personally on here is you guys jump to the conclusion that I'm in a position to defend government. I agree with you guys that government is U.S. government and the state government is way overextended their bounds.
But we just want to know what guns you think people shouldn't have.
Opioid guns.
Yeah.
Hey, this is gonna blow Tim's mind. I heard they're making plastic out of hemp and making guns out of the polymer.
Wow.
So
awesome.
there's
but I'm not against it. That's what I'm saying.
Guns.
This is
as hood as it gets.
This is the point that I'm trying to make. You guys think that I'm against. You said what guns should be made illegal? No, I have no problem with any law-abiding citizen owning a gun. If you are a person who has a felony, because that's a line that you draw. We always talk about my lines in this room.
Well,
if you have a felony,
my man Soder does not believe that.
Fully automatic guns?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have
depleting uranium rounds?
Ooh.
Can you get your hands on some?
Well, I mean, it's kind of tough, but
say it right now, Nick.
I know, guys. It's okay. I will help you. But if you could, with the depleted uranium, be okay.
That's something that attorneys do, by the way, and I've learned this in St. Paul. Like, if you say something, they will find the one example, even if it's the most obscure example, to get you to contradict them. You see, you don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm not.
What happens?
I'm just trying to find the limit. I'm trying to find where, because I know, I've got my limit. I want to know where Tim's limit is.
I find it funny. I find it
like a battleship.
I find it funny. If you can get your hands on one, I'm fine with you owning one. I find it funny that
cruising around.
I find it
Green
funny
Lake with a battleship.
I find it funny that automatic weapons are banned in the sense that like that does some sort of. I guess in a way it could do some sort of good. But I'm not, by the way, they aren't banned. You just have to have a certain level of license.
In Minnesota, I can't own one.
You can if you are a what's it called?
Yeah, if I have an FFL
class 3. You have a class 3. You can
which is a dealer license.
Class 3 is
Isn't
well.
it?
It's
now you can get one without a dealer license. You just have to.
You have to get a tax stamp.
Yeah,
and you have to.
There's a few things, but a class 3
you can barely even have sped in your life. It's tough.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can get a class 3 license because I know someone who has one and they have automatic weapons. So there is a way to do
have
it.
Can I hang out with that person?
Absolutely, I have.
Do they have a helicopter? Can we shoot them
class
from the helicopter?
License is a licensed dealer.
But
well,
not
there's
just
probably it's probably effectively a licensed dealers.
You have to get a tax stamp. You have to have
you have to have 20 grand.
But me,
it costs,
what you need.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money.
You gotta
but
have
me
20 grand.
as a
And they have
private
to-
citizen, don't want to deal with guns. I can't own one.
I'm
By
launching
deal, I
a
mean buy and
GoFundMe to get me the 20 grand to buy a pre-1986 fully automatic lower receiver, and I'll get the tax stamp, and we will just shoot it every day on the channel. That's all we're gonna do.
Hey, I'm down.
Then I'm gonna
down.
crowdfund bullets.
Yeah. We'll
Get
take
names
up a
engraved on them.
But so that is an interesting point, though. That's a very interesting point that now we have gone to this place where we don't want to just sue one guy. We just want to take the whole industry down. So rather than going after the people that are responsible for the actions, we want to go after the whole industry.
Now, you're giving way too much credit for the people that are involved in this. Okay, they aren't looking to take the industry down. There are some people within the ranks that are looking to take the industry down. I am telling you, this is about money. Rush Limbaugh used to always say, I don't know if he still does, follow the money. Okay, follow the money or follow the government control would be one of the two different things. Okay, so when we talk about opioid crisis, whenever you hear the word crisis put in front of something, when a politician is saying crisis, think twice. There are crises out there. Don't get me wrong. Okay, but we overuse the word crisis. Why? Because crisis makes people act irrationally, hand over their rights to someone so that they can fix whatever the crisis is. We don't care what it is, just fix it. Thank you for fixing it and making us safer, sort of thing. That's a fundamental problem, and I'm in total agreement with you on that, okay? Are there serious opioid problems? Yes. Here's the irony is the bill that passed in Minnesota, one of the things that we're asking for is we're raising all this money. Let's put a significant amount of that money towards the criminal aspects of that. Let's fund BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in Minnesota, which is a really good organization, by the way. Okay, let's fund them out of the $20 million a year that this fund is going to do. I think they're giving $300,000 to the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to address the criminal aspects of this. They're dumping all the money into areas that isn't really going to affect.
No.
Yes.
No, government doesn't do that.
But I know you're being sarcastic to make my point. They always do that, okay? But they do that because money is power. Power is control. Control allows you to extract more money to get more power to get more control.
I think what he's trying to say is, what is it? The power's in the money's in the power, minute after minute, hour after hour.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. What is that? Did you make that up?
Poetry.
It's from a wise philosopher.
Yeah.
It's called Nick.
No, I don't take credit for that. That man's a genius.
That man is a genius.
So, but that's why don't get caught up in the logical tenets of the argument, because it's not about that. They only use that like the red flag law for gun control. I have my son owns some weapons. He's in the military. He's very pro Second Amendment. And he said, I have to agree. You don't want crazy people owning guns, okay? And I said, you know what? If you ever went to counseling and took an antidepressant, it could take your guns away from you. He goes, well, why would they do that? And I go, because they can.
Because you're
That's
crazy.
the definition.
Yeah.
It goes back to the argument that we had through texting this week, if you want to call it an argument, because it was texting. We were talking about the they're using doctor-assisted suicide to actually promote euthanasia. Because
why don't you like the euthanasia?
You're gonna be compelled. Your heart and soul is gonna say, I don't want that terminal person to have to suffer, and they're gonna open the door for euthanasia.
That's another argument that I was going to bring up is
they stop tanks in Tiananmen.
That you have a tendency to once again to assume, to make these jumps, these hasty generalizations, that just because this is one, that this is going to be the natural outcome.
No, it's not. I'll dig up the legislation from a couple of years ago. They were talking about doctor-assisted suicide, and the language in the law was euthanasia. They were lying.
Okay, so I get it. I get it. Once again, I'm going to back up though. So back to this gun thing, because I mean, Second Amendment. I'm pro Second Amendment. You guys see me in my Vortex stuff all the time, Yeah, I'm very pro second.
The only subject we're all on the same page, I think.
Well, I've got to look for stuff, but I think we're about to get off of this happy train.
This was happy.
Oh yeah. This you guys, if you guys want kumbaya, it just left a little bit ago. So because so the next question is, okay, so I think that what just happened in Oregon is probably going to speed up this digression, though, right, towards moving to disarming Americans, right? I mean, so you saw that essentially, um, and thank you very much, Tim, because I was trying to figure out why these Republican senators in Oregon were not wanting to come in. I thought, why don't you just show up and vote no? I mean, that seems kind of cowardly.
It was a quorum
to just not show up. And so what you explained to me is that they had to establish a quorum. Without those senators being there, they could not establish a quorum, so therefore they could not vote at all. Right? There was no vote. No motion could be made, no second. So the governor decides, I'll fix you. I'm going to send the state police to your home and drag you in to force you to vote.
That's
right?
why you got to go to a motel just across the state line. That's what they did in
Wisconsin.
Oklahoma also.
Yeah, but Wisconsin, they did it too.
Yeah.
So, well, there you go. So, but it's interesting to me that who came to their rescue? The 3%ers and a couple other militia groups came to their rescue and said, essentially, if you're going to come after them, you better send bachelors and make sure they're heavily armed, which I thought was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, they did a great job at that nature preserve, protecting that guy trying to turn himself into the sheriff.
Oh, the Bundy Ranch?
No. A few years ago, they took over a place up in Oregon. Or was it Washington?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and then one of the guys, it was starting to
that
come
one.
down, and one of the guys was going to turn himself into a friendly sheriff.
Yeah.
And so he started driving away, and they set up a roadblock just after a turn. Didn't see it coming.
Oh, and they
Went
shot
off the
him.
road, and then they shot him.
Not the militia, though.
They shot one of the leaders of the militia.
Right, but it
groups.
wasn't the militia. It was the Bundy still.
It was
That was
related, tangentially related, but it was not.
Okay.
Who did the shooting? The cops
I
did
believe
the
it was the
shooting?
FBI that did the shooting.
It was,
and then
it was the government.
None of them started hanging
Was
from
Janet
trees.
Reno there? Was
Probably.
she pulling the trigger?
It probably was.
She was there with just a jug of gasoline. She's like, I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting.
She wanted to refill the cars. They were waiting a while.
Once that truck stops, I'm going to fill it with gasoline.
Oh, here someone said the Mallory National Reserve, and the guy is Lavoy Finicum.
Okay.
Yeah, that guy.
There you
That
go.
guy.
Well,
Finicum.
Finicum, they
So
finished
so
him.
it bothers me that nobody wants to be. I feel that, and one thing I like about Nick is always very quick to give the true history of things, instead of pussyfooting around things. He's very quick to give the truth. So everyone wants to talk about, because the big argument years ago, right after the Sandy Hook shooting, was you don't need 30 bullets to shoot a deer, or you don't need 30 bullets to shoot a duck, and all these other things.
I bet half the people saying that would absolutely require a minimum of 30 bullets to hit anything. But sure.
So, but the interesting point to me was that wasn't the founding fathers' intention at all. I mean,
to be fair, they were still on single loaders back.
Yeah, musket balls.
Nick, what are you doing? Don't do that here. Wait till you get home.
The government reach around.
Okay, so but they were using those. Their intention was for people to be able to protect themselves from government, right?
Yep.
And so the argument, the concern, is that these militias that are actually protecting officials like yourself, elected officials, not fighting, which is actually kind of ironic, right? So they're actually being fought for by the militias, right? Which is kind of cool to think about. Are there any militias that you know of in Minnesota that would come to your aid if you needed them to? Soder and I would be there for sure.
I can tell you in the Minnesota House, first of all, everyone sitting next to me is carrying, and I'm carrying. There's probably about 15, 20 people carrying at any time in the legislature. So in a way, we're a
Wait,
militia.
so y'all are allowed to carry?
Yeah.
In, but
yeah. No, you
You
can't
can't
do it.
if you have your permit to carry now, you can carry in the Capitol.
Really?
Yeah.
You have to probably send a letter.
Not anymore.
No,
we
not
got rid
anymore.
of that. We got
Your
rid
permit
of that.
is the letter.
Yeah, your
Sweet.
permit is the letter.
It used to be yes.
Hey, you
need to
guys
send
did a
letter.
good thing.
Yeah,
So
now
sad.
I'm so proud.
yeah, but now we can't carry our cell phones into the courthouse anymore, even to just drop them off with the bailiff.
Although you know what's okay. So this is a
So you
this
had
is
to
a
trade
digression.
you had to
Because-
trade.
You just need the proper license to carry your cell phone into a courthouse.
So
Which is
because
what?
one.
because
Oh.
Soder always says we have to inject a little bit of humor every once in a while. I'm going to do that. Here's an irony. So the legislature, so the Minnesota,
Is that your cell phone carry permit?
This is the cell phone carry permit into
Are you
any
kidding?
courthouse.
that's
I'm-
awesome.
I'm dead serious.
For
Let me
those
see.
curious, I believe that is his lawyer license.
Yeah, it is. It
So
is.
anyway,
So I just need to
here's-
spend
here's
like
the funny
$100 grand in schooling.
In Minnesota government, I was telling this ironic. So the Capitol is wide open to the public. Now there's plenty of state troopers and some Capitol police around there and stuff. But then the building I'm in, called the State Office Building, it's in a big office building off to the west of the Capitol. You can just walk in there, walk up to my office, shoot me dead, and walk out. And there's probably no one that would know any of the wiser unless they heard the rounds going off. But
Is
then
that
you go,
because the governor
but
fired
then
all
you
your
go,
staff?
then you go next door to the next building, to the south of the SOB. It's the MnDOT building. And you need like all these credentials. I don't think you can carry in there. I think you have to. I think it's a weapon-free zone. You have all these different things so the Minnesota Department of Transportation. They have all these top security things to get in there. But for us legislators, let them in and do what they want, sort of thing. I thought that was kind of funny. We're the ones that they want to shoot.
Well, I don't know that DOT's that far up the list from you guys, to be fair. Let's not be too
So,
hasty.
yeah, you can carry on the Minnesota Capitol grounds.
So, but the interesting part about it is that we talked last week, and I disagreed with you. You felt that Civil War was not too far around the corner because of how far we've digressed from, shall we say, constructive
Yep.
disagreement,
Yep.
right? And the way we disagree and how polarizing everything is now. And I told you were nuts because there's absolutely no way that in this particular arena that we're in now that people would reach the point that they would actually take up arms, and it just would never happen. And then this very week, we see that they are sending the police after elected officials to round them up, and I think she recanted from that, didn't she? I don't think that.
No, I think no. To burst your bubble, a lot of what you're seeing out there is for the cameras.
What?
Yeah, a lot of what you're-
posturing the
posturing for
word
the
send
cameras.
bachelors.
Me?
No.
No.
I want to burst your bubble.
Okay.
That so like the threat to go. That's why I said in the text exchange that we had, I said it's when they actually do go and cuff those senators and drag them back in. Then you can go, whoa, because right now it's just a war of words, and it's speaking to a constituency. The one guy who said they better be a bachelor and they better come armed, I guarantee you that senator is in a very, very, very conservative district. Okay,
Sure.
and the people in that district appreciated what he said.
Hmm.
Okay, now maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just saying that some of this is kind of war of words in the media that they're doing. But at such point where those actions are actually taken, where they do go and arrest and drag them in, then it becomes a very real deal sort of thing. And I don't think she's willing to go to that.
What was that porn?
Yeah.
That's what?
Oh, there's something he needs.
There we go.
I'm helping the moderator moderate, not you.
Sorry, I was reading something else.
Mr. Producer. Mr.
Taking
Producer,
care.
I
He
need
had
you to
actually-
take
He
care
just
of
clicked on the link. That's the thing.
Mr. Producer,
this.
can you
Mr. Producer, we're gonna need some regulation.
Someone wants to come
In the
back to
chat?
opioids, I think.
So,
Okay, so anyway.
okay, so posturing for the camera.
But there is a lot of truth to what you're saying, and that's I don't know the course that it's going to take. It's really cheap to say, oh, there's going to be civil war, because you don't. I agree with you. You don't see a pathway right now. But I will tell you that if there is economic collapse or there's something else, I've seen people act incredibly irrational with just a little bit of pain. Can you imagine when society really has to face, some true, real regression of they're suddenly broke and they can't get their hands on food or
opioids.
Yeah. So
The government will save us from this.
Oh, absolutely.
I would argue that if you took a poll of the American people in the 1850s, I'm not saying we're going to have civil war. I think we're heading in that direction. If you told, and I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't think it'll look like the last time, but if you were to take a poll of Americans in the 1850s and said, do you think there's going to be a civil war in the 1860s? They would have said you're absolutely nuts. Why? Because that's an irrational thought. Why would you have Americans taking up arms against other Americans?
We'll have civil war on Twitter. We'll send out some tweets.
It'll be a virtual. It'll be an
Left
Instagram war.
Crushed.
Right.
We can't meme for
They
nothing.
can't meme for shit.
By the way,
Weaponized memes.
did you see when on Twitter when Congressman Emmer's son graduated from boot camp with the Marines, and the Democrat, I believe was the chair, or at least he was on the executive committee of the Democrat CD6, the CD6 Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Said, yeah, and I wonder how many Iranians he'll be killing in his lifetime, or innocent Iranians, or stuff like that. On Twitter, it kind of blew up.
Ouch.
A couple days before, when they christened the USS St. Paul, Minneapolis, or Minneapolis, St. Paul, I guess it's called.
They called a ship the St. Paul, Minneapolis.
Yeah, Minneapolis, St. Paul, I think.
Can they just let the
USS.
internet name ships, please?
So anyway,
It'll be Warface Warship McWarship.
the deputy communications director of the Democrat Party of Minnesota
Somebody's gotta go.
made some Twitter comment to the effect of how many people will that ship kill in its future, or something like that. So
Wow.
he got removed. He can get fired because no one ever gets fired. He just got put into a different position.
Especially in government. Yeah.
No, they don't. Never got fired.
You can shoot like 100 unarmed black men, and you'll just keep on getting moved from one precinct to the next. So
It's actually been the same guy. All the police shootings across the country, it's the same
it's
guy.
been the same cat. They just changed his name.
Oh my goodness.
They just hired Zimmerman and sent him around. Oh, this is a good resume.
I've been everywhere, man. So, Nick, I wanted you here for this particular portion, though. So last week we got into. Did you watch the chat last week? Just lie and say yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay. I thought you did. I thought I saw it. So last week we talked about.
Or are you? Sorry, that was a funny chat. Thank you, Prince by Tor. That would be a great vote. That would be a great vote.
Okay, so we got into talking about the. Well, he brought it up, the whole whether or not people should have the right to die.
Right.
Right.
Now, if we just get rid of the right to die, then people will live forever.
Oh yeah.
Is that
yeah.
stupid Constitution getting in the way?
Right.
Certain and unalienable right, the right to death.
Whether or not people have the right to die or right to choose their death, but of course, Sir Miller here wants as many tax-paying citizens alive as possible, and dead people don't pay taxes.
Why are
According to you, so I can keep my job. I think you said that like 6 times.
I did.
Now, why are you so ableist, Tim?
Am I ableist?
You have to be. If you're
must
opposed to assisted suicide, you must be an ableist monster.
What? Okay, give me wait. I'll just Google
Because
it.
if
I don't
you-
care your definition. I'm gonna Google ableist monster.
All right, it's probably got my picture
Isn't
next
Google
to it.
itself? Isn't Google itself an ableist monster?
Yeah. Well, Actually, people at Google call me an ableist monster, and that's a true fact.
So wait, you and Tim both have the same view on this?
No.
Oh, there's actually ableist definition was a drop down.
Yeah, this is a real word.
Discrimination in favor of able-bodied people.
Yeah, you're an ableist. Because
Oh.
notice he's only going after people who need assisted suicide. If they could just neck themselves, if they could climb the tree with the rope and drop off of it, what's he going to do? Nothing. But people who need help ending it all, no. He's opposed. Why are you such an ableist monster?
Yes, I am.
All right. At least you're with
You know,
it.
I tell you what, I just got the idea that to say that someone kicked the bucket
Yeah.
is a terrible thing to say.
Stephen Hawking didn't kick the bucket. Not a chance. He might have run it over.
Oh my God. I just really thought about that. Wow. Mid-show. Okay. So, but
Wait,
Hey, real quick. Let me say something to the chat here. Hey guys, we need your help with something. This is a time for a real moment. Suppa Sandwich raises a good point. Suppa Sandwich says Streamlabs is a pain in the neck, and I agree. Streamlabs is a pain in the neck. Super chat function, for all of the annoyance that it brings, is much cleaner and smoother than Streamlabs. Granted, YouTube takes a cut. Now here's the issue, though. We have got to get this channel to what, 4,000 watch
4,000 hours.
4,000 watch
And we're
hours.
a third of the way there.
For that, we need y'all's help. We need you to share these videos around. We need you to hit like. We need you to subscribe. You know what? When you're on a Sunday, you stream every Sunday, 7 o'clock,
every
right?
Sunday, 7
Unless
o'clock.
something comes up, we're here 7 p.m. Sunday.
All right, 7 p.m. on Sunday. Hit the watch button on your phone. Throw it on your headphones while you're doing housework or while you're chilling, or even while your family is doing something. You just hit that, turn it on.
We are
and then
family friendly, I've heard.
Go hang out with your family, and it doesn't even matter. Let's get them up to 4,000 hours on this channel, so the super chat function can be enabled and people can be have an easier access to participate here. But if there's a channel that deserves it, buddy, it's this one.
And he did send
It's
us a Streamlabs.
Well,
Yes, and that is very much appreciated.
Thank you. So I'm going to read it real quick. So here from Nikki Rackett's tweeters. Enjoying the show with a glass of Basil Hayden's bourbon.
Oh, buddy.
Well,
Thin ice
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm about
Just
to go.
did an ad read on
Yeah,
your show, and now
wow.
you're massacring the good name.
Nick, is the bourbon or rye better?
Mm.
You should be reading this. He's asking you a question.
All right. Is the bourbon or rye better? It depends on if you like bourbon or rye or what mood you're in. The bourbon's got a little bit of sweetness. The rye's a little harsher. They're both great. Enjoy them both. I don't know that either one is better than the other. They're like the same price. Just get both of them. Great content, Q. Looking forward to more now that I'm subscribed. Please take my money that I just waste on Nick. Hey, wait a minute.
That's great.
Thank you very much, Supper Sandwich. We really appreciate it. And yes, we are looking forward to getting to super chats and growing the channel and just bringing more content. There's a lot to be said. There's a lot going on in the country. The primary reason for this channel is I think that there's just not enough good dialogue. I think we just have to be able, everybody's afraid to talk to people who think differently, look differently, act differently. We've got to get back to the point where we might not necessarily agree. We don't have to agree. We can still respect each other. There's times that Tim and I don't agree. I still respect the heck out of the man. Me and Nick agree on everything, so it's kind of tough to find something we don't agree on. But we're working on it. We're looking for some things we can disagree with.
But you're absolutely right. In government, when people say, they say there's a problem. What's the problem? You need to have the conversations. We don't have real conversations as much as we should. There's disrespect when you have those conversations. I say all the time, there's people in the legislature that I respect and don't respect, but that's independent of the issues. There's people There's people that I respect a great deal that we don't agree on hardly anything, but they've proven themselves to be someone that I can have a real discussion, even argument with. It's okay to argue, but we're not going to get anything done if we just start lobbing the shots for the sake of taking the shots. A good point.
I I agree wholeheartedly. So as we talk about it though, so we were discussing the whole physician assisted suicide. Now you bring up a good point. So you wouldn't disagree that people have the right to end their own lives, right? That is their right, correct?
So you put this in form of rights. I mean, I don't really have a good answer for you. No, people should not be killing themselves. But I don't know. But then you say, well, so what? Are you supposed to put them behind bars because they tried to kill themselves? No, absolutely not. See, that's one of the challenges that we have here. Just like I say,
that is an interesting point. So do you believe that people that attempt suicide that don't succeed, that they should serve sentence for that?
No, absolutely not. I think they need help. That's what I'm saying. Everything is litigious and everything is guilty or not guilty. That's just there are times in our society where we need to address ills with humanity and compassion. Okay, it's not a matter of whether it's guilty. You know, when I was growing up, I was told I went to church as a kid, and they said if you killed yourself, you're going to hell. Okay, that's not a true statement. Okay, I mean it might be, but it isn't because you killed yourself. Okay, but government doesn't determine whether you go to heaven or hell anyway. So let's back it up to the question that you asked. No, I don't think people should be charged with a crime because they attempted suicide, or that they achieved it. I think we need to be brokenhearted that there's someone that has come to the point to where their life does not have enough value to go on, and we need to defend that person. That's where when you first told me how can I be anti-abortion, but also anti doctor-assisted suicide, you just absolutely blew my mind. I was like, how could you not agree with that? Because I believe fundamentally in the sanctity of life. There is value in that life. And so anyone that wants to take away from that life, we need to address. Now, maybe criminally, but everything isn't criminal here. Sometimes it's just something that needs to be addressed. If there is someone who is at the point to where they believe they don't have enough value in this world that they should die, that's a sad thing, and we need to group around them and show them that they do have value.
Why is that government's job?
I didn't say it's government's job.
I think he was saying that.
When did I say that? When did I say that was government's job?
But that's the question, right?
Like, my whole big head is in this. It's like if I get close enough to the microphone, I have to get right in it.
But that's the ultimate question, though, because we're talking about imposing some sort of duty, and we're talking about either allowing or disallowing something, right? Doctor-assisted suicide. The question is not.
Yeah, then there has to be if you're going to disallow something and it's a crime, then there has to be repercussion for that. I get it.
Right. So if we're to say that, well, doctor-assisted suicide is bad because when there's someone who's at the point where they find their life to be useless or whatever, let's just ignore the broad spectrum that could be, right? That could be a teenager who's in a bad spot. That could be a 90-year-old terminal melanoma patient who doesn't want pain anymore. Let's ignore, because it could be anywhere in there. We're going to ignore the sob stories, okay? Mm-hmm. We say there's a life as a principle, and it has some value that we want to encourage preserving. But if we get rid of doctor-assisted suicide, we're taking that value statement and deciding that government needs to enforce it. My question is why?
If I may. Last week, I kind of thought about it during the stream, but I didn't flesh it out too much. What I came to the conclusion is, how can you know the person wants to die? To keep the physician or whoever helped them out of jail, and
because if you guys haven't noticed, just so you see the genius of Q, tooting my own horn, I've made a full circle. If you haven't noticed, we've gone from talking about opioids to talking about how opioids are going to affect these massive um, lawsuits against gun manufacturers. They're talking about what's going on in Oregon and possible civil war that could be brewing because of these things.
To advocating suicide.
Well, no.
In Minecraft. In Minecraft.
Assisted suicide, which is not a funny thing. I'm not making jokes about it,
Sorry.
but in a sense, we have to be able to laugh at certain things. Not suicide though. But to full circle, talking about people with chronic pain that are really just digressing in that, and they want to end their life, right? But if we go back to the beginning, these people soon won't be able to get opioids to even manage their pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about taking away not only their right to get medication to be able to control that, but eventually taking away their right to even end it in a dignified fashion.
So here's the line, okay?
You see, but
no, I get what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying.
And I agree. Right. Absolutely. So here's the thing. And as you're talking about this, I'm going to go with the real story. That's the way I understand things. So that's the way I explain it. Here's the example of my mom, who has now since passed away. Okay, she had a bad heart. She also had kidney cancer. And kind of long story short, she said she was coming near the end. The cancer was starting to catch up with her. And she said, I want my heart to take me before the cancer takes me. Okay? And so she did a couple different things. She went off of any sort of treatment for the cancer, but she also had her pacemaker turned off. Okay? Now, if that's doctor-assisted suicide, where they take away the treatments, then you got me. Then I can agree with you. Okay? Where I disagree with you is where there is a proactive approach to it, where the doctor actually injects them with something so that they die or whatever. Okay? And the reason why I do that is you can remove remedies. Okay, that's one thing. Where you cross the line for me is where you have it's about the doctor. It's not about what the person wants, but when you have someone that is proactively doing something on your behalf, so they're a third party to who you are. Okay, when you're having that third party doing something proactive, first of all, I think that's not a doctor should not be taking any life. That goes against the Hippocratic Oath. Okay, but beyond that, the broader issue of what does this mean beyond that is as soon as we open the door for one person to being able to take away your life, it opens the door for someone else, someone else, and someone else, and someone else.
So you're literally saying that you are okay with assisted suicide by subtraction only.
If you want to call it that, then you bet.
It's the same thing, is it not?
No, it's not.
If you're saying that I'm going to take away something that's keeping you alive versus I'm going to give you something to help you pass peacefully, what's the difference?
The removal of a feeding tube is okay.
If the person is logically saying it, if they're the ones that are saying it, yeah. When you get into those cases where in every once in a great while you have one come up where the courts are fighting over whether a feeding tube should be removed or not. Those are people outside of that individual person saying it.
Yeah.
And that's a real...
Although they may or may not have been given the authority to act for that person.
Right. Which, by the way, we have to have those arguments. But I always say, let's remember that there's a tragic situation there that we always seem to want to forget that this is humanity that we're talking about. Okay?
But I'm not talking about that.
But in the case of my mom...
I'm sitting there with a feeding tube in my chest, and I'm like, you know what? Where do they put in feeding tubes these days? I'm not up on the newest medical science.
I think it depends. I get your point.
But I'm sitting there with a feeding tube, and I'm like, you know what? I really miss steak. I'm never gonna have steak again. I want them to remove the feeding tube and let me die. Then I can elect to starve myself for however many days it takes me to die. That's okay. What I can't do is say, hey doc, will you pump me full of morphine so that while I'm starving, it's actually a little more pleasant and peaceful.
My argument is essentially yes to what you just said, okay? But my argument is that we keep trying to draw this back, and I understand because you're an attorney okay? So it's where is it criminal and where is it not criminal?
I just want to sue the doctor when they do it. But go ahead. No, I'm just kidding. But
Sorry, I had someone text me. I want to make sure I didn't say something really crossing the line on the show right now. I have my
Sup a sandwich. It's
I have-
actually
I have
legal
my-
in
I have my political-
Maine
I'll
now
eat
as
the
well.
mic.
my political flank is watching this show,
And
and I want to
Oregon.
make sure I didn't just say something that gets me in trouble. No. So my argument is I am more personally. I don't want to, and I know we have to make this into where does the government draw the line on this, and that's why we're arguing here. But me personally, I am compassionate towards that person. Using the example of my mom, where she said, "Stop the treatment." Stopping the treatment for cancer didn't really affect anything. The treatment actually almost killed her. But with the pacemaker, she said, "Turn off." When she said, "Turn off the pacemaker," she was going to die, and they were prepared. Kind of a neat thing for my mom is that she didn't have to take morphine or anything. She had a very peaceful death. It was kind of an incredible thing. Okay, which, by the way, allowing her to die in that way provided more blessings to those around her than if she would have just terminated her life 2 weeks prior. This is where my faith steps in.
But for her, it did.
Say what now?
For her, it did.
For her, did what?
Well, you just said how great it was that things actually were rather peaceful for her, and it gave her 2 weeks of peace. But what if it wasn't 2 weeks of peace? What if it was 2 weeks of horrendous pain and feces and all sorts of nasty stuff?
Oh well, we had that stuff. I mean, that's not pain.
Well, I mean, it was Anne.
Death is not a real pretty thing to witness.
No.
Okay, and I get that. My problem is that I am compassionate to that person who wants to die. Okay, I get really uncomfortable when a doctor is stepping in. Now the next thing, because again, you're a analytical attorney, and you're saying, it's okay.
Salt.
So then it's legal then for the person to kill themselves, and I don't want to go there, not just because it's a rather difficult thing to have a conversation on, but my mind doesn't go there. My mind goes to the compassion of the humanity of that person and humanity as a whole.
But the problem
my biggest problem in society is we are devaluing human life every which way but loose in our society. And so anytime someone says, well, this is a devaluing, but you know what, it makes logical sense for that independent person to do what they want. I just have a real problem going there and defending it, even if there's a logical argument to it.
But that's literally your job, and that's the reason why we talk to you about it, right? Because literally your job is to decide where that line.
It can be. Yes.
What if they're all Democrats? That's a joke. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. That's just a joke.
Okay.
That's a political joke.
I don't listen. I have less problems with the Democrats I know than some of the Republicans I know. So
Wait a minute.
That's where I really get myself in trouble.
I have a feeling I might get assisted suicided soon.
That's what I was trying to get at earlier. Was what are the definitions of a physician? Then the state has to figure out who a physician is. They might have one right now, but in terms of libertarian,
why is it physician? So let's say I'm in pain and I go, hold on, I'm going to interrupt you because I'm an attorney.
I'm just a schmuck.
I write my you're Soder. I write my letter and I say, look, I'm tired of being confined to this wheelchair because I fell off a horse. My name was Superman, and I want Soder to to take my wheelchair. Soder is not a doctor. I want him to take my wheelchair, open up an elevator shaft, no elevator there, and dump me into it, so I'm dead. Why does it have what's wrong with that? Why does it have to be a physician-assisted suicide?
And that's where I was going with my line of thinking is the state would have to define what a physician is for a physician to legalize physician-assisted suicide, and then what proof would we need to have that that person was of are they of sound mind? They're wanting to commit suicide. Are they of sound body? Probably not, because they want to commit suicide.
But why is it the government's job to ensure this?
Because how can we prove that the person who assisted wasn't just murdering them?
The same way we'd prove murder in any other capacity. You'd have to have evidence that they were trying to murder them.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have to prove that they weren't.
In this assisted suicide, the person who's making those claims is dead.
Yeah.
So any proof we'd have would be letters or video recording, right?
Sure.
How can we? So then the question is, what level of proof is there that we could accept that we could say this wasn't coerced at all?
Letters or video recording.
How do we know that wasn't coerced, though? Like,
Well, in physician-assisted suicide, this would probably be about the easiest thing in the world because they'd be in a controlled environment. You could have multiple videos. You could have family in those frames. Are we like assuming that the doctor is holding an AK-47 off screen?
Not specifically the doctor, no, but
Well, who's holding the AK-47 then? Because I
butler.
think we need a licensed
Hold on a
professional.
second. That sounds like a whole lot of regulations over doctor-assisted suicide.
yeah,
No,
That's
It's
only to
his-
make that's only
it's-
to make you happy.
It's his hypothetical. It's not
away,
mine.
Taking away from private data and private. Go ahead, continue.
No, it's his hypothetical is asking for all this proof. But I mean, there's plenty of ways we could do that. I'm still stuck on the idea that if I could climb a tree as a terminal cancer patient and jump out of it until I'm dead, why can't I just ask the person to give me a bunch of morphine until I'm dead? Like that, the distinction between those two things, because that's where, like, what we're really talking about with assisted suicide. I said we weren't going to get into specific examples, but we're really not talking about a depressed teenager, right? We're really
No.
talking about someone, when we're talking about right to die, we're typically talking about someone who's in chronic severe pain or is terminal.
Last week we talked about a friend of mine who fell out of a tree stand, is completely paralyzed from the neck down, who is in pain every day of his life, and is 42 years old.
Right. He's
So,
got a long way to go
Got a
because
long way to go.
he's going to live for a very long time like that. Odds
He is.
are.
And so we talked, and he has expressed to me he wishes that he could end it. He just does not want to continue to live that way. The problem that we have is whenever we get into this discussion, and don't want anybody to get mad at me, but I mean, this is where we have these tough discussions. It seems as though the question always comes up, well, my faith or my Bible, which, and I get that. But that's a really, really, really slippery slope, because at what point does, well, Nick, you tell me. I mean, you study the law. I mean,
Sometimes.
Who said he studied?
So, at what point do those two things cross? Where is the line between your personal faith or a person's personal faith and the government or the law?
Well, what I'll say is, our current system has a very skewed perspective, in my opinion, on where that line is. Now, I am actually most likely to agree with Tim on this, in that we can never suggest that a representative's personal faith needs to be discounted from their decision making, right? Like we don't put you into office and say, look, we know you're Tim Miller and you have this particular brand of personal faith. Now we want you to act completely without regard to it. So I'm not one to say that is the case.
Right.
But my question ultimately, and the question on this is, if we eliminate the faith question, because like I said, politicians should always act with their personal ideology incorporated into their decisions. Otherwise, why are we electing this person? So
Correct.
Amen, by the way. Thank you.
No, of course.
What is this world coming to?
Of course. Now, we just might have to unelect you for all sorts. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I don't disagree. You can unelect me for the exact same reasons.
And I think to suggest otherwise is ridiculous and silly. But the question in this case is, where is the state's role in stepping in to prevent a death of a person when it's that person's choice? Like, if I have any right, I have a right to own a gun, I can forego that right and not own a gun.
Right.
I have a right to not have the government quarter soldiers in my house. I can offer my house as a place for a soldier to stay. I can forgo my Fifth Amendment rights. I can forgo my Sixth Amendment rights. I can represent myself in a criminal trial. I can forgo every single right that I have. Except there's a government who just won't let me forgo the right to life. And that's a weird thing because me being alive directly benefits the government in many, many ways. So where otherwise we would find a conflict of interest because it's the government saying, no, you can't get rid of this right. You can get rid of all your other ones, but not this one. They benefit because they get tax dollars. They get population. They get, and population is directly related to how many public officials we have. All of that stuff, the number of people alive benefits government, even when government is paying out for those people. So
if I get cancer, I'm just going to go driving around in white neighborhoods.
You already do. But so do I call you Rekieta or do I call you Barry first?
You can call me Nick. Everybody knows who I am. So
okay, so Nick,
everybody knows who
I actually,
am.
as far as law goes, I agree with everything you said.
Yeah.
But for where I probably
but for?
disagree with but for.
Everything after that or before that is nothing.
That's right. But for the doctor system, that's where I think that society has, and it's because of the moral dilemma of what doctors' role is supposed to be, and number two, the broader implications that if one person can take my life, even if it's logically justifiable to you, that opens the door that other people can take my life.
Ooh.
Whoever.
With your consent, though, right? Like we're not going to argue that because a doctor.
But Soder made mention of this earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't know where the consent lies.
Why not?
We
figure out where consent lies all the time.
Well, we get that mixed up every once.
I'll tell you what. So a living will, right?
Sure.
Do you know that living wills, in the end up having little legal strength behind them? They can be stopped.
Yeah.
Because someone said she didn't really mean that, even though she's unconscious. She didn't mean that. I don't want her to die, and they put in the life-saving effort.
Yeah. Well, they should have to prove that, but that's the thing. We're not talking about. In a sense, we are, but when we're talking about someone making that decision, they're lying there or sitting, as it were, with Q's friend, sitting there saying, "I want to die," and we can pretty easily discern that that's a factual statement. And I know there's a slippery slope argument, but it's still a slippery slope argument.
Well, no, but here's another problem that I have that is on top of that. Okay, and I said this earlier as well. Let me just play the game for a second and say, you know what? I'm going to support that. I'm going to support legislation that says that.
Mm-hmm.
The legislation that was in the Minnesota Senate in 2016 did not do what you just said there.
Sure.
It said it did. It said that that's what it was about.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And therein lies an inherent problem with lawmaking also, is that there is, and that's maybe where my pessimism comes in, is there is so much legislation that is passed saying, look at my left hand. Look at my left hand when you should be looking at the right hand.
Well, okay, so we're moving now from the philosophical argument
Absolutely.
about the right to die into how bad you guys are doing your job.
No, it's because
I'm
here's
just kidding.
and here no, but here's also why I said, and it's at that point that I jokingly tell him, sort of jokingly, libertarianism has its problems because libertarianism works very well in the philosophical. It doesn't work. It doesn't work well in
this
cases
argument's
like
not
this.
going to go well for you.
It is absolutely going to go well because I am there. I watch this day to day. What happens in the real world it's not right. I'm telling you it's wrong, but I'm telling you what happens.
It's wrong too.
I'm telling you what happens in real legislation. Okay, so for example, another example.
The libertarian perspective wouldn't require legislation to allow someone to die.
No, you're not hearing me on that. What I'm saying is that libertarianism, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the difficulty is that when you get into a real legislature, things don't happen exactly the way they say they're going to, or they should. Now, it should be, but it isn't. So the example that I have is this year we passed what was affectionately called the hands-free legislation, right?
Yeah.
A libertarian's wet dream, right? Woohoo! You
No
control.
way. It's about using phones in cars, right?
Yes.
Yeah, well.
So no, you hate it.
Yeah, you guys can go Minecraft yourself for that one.
Right. But here's my point. Okay? Here's my point. The people that wanted that hands-free legislation passed, what they really wanted is they want someone to be in trouble if they're looking at their phone when they drive through an intersection and kill someone. Very few people that would actually disagree with that. That person needs to be held accountable. Okay? Ironically, with the bill that was passed, first of all, that person still is not held accountable. And number two, if you want to see the craziness of legislation, we've been working on 3 years for distracted driving legislation. This is enacted August 1st is when this goes into law. Okay.
My
Today,
problem.
hold on. Today, let me finish this. Today, I cannot by law text on my phone while I'm driving. After August 1st, you can text while driving.
Oh, thank God.
But I'm saying, but people that wanted this would say, well, that's absolutely crazy. We don't want people texting. That's my point exactly. But we got a law that was passed because you could get enough votes on the legislation that was there to pass and sign into law. So my point is you can say that there is a perfect way to write a law on doctor-assisted suicide. I'd love to see it, because what gets passed and signed into law is not going to be that law.
I don't think that's at all what we were saying. I think we were saying there shouldn't be a law on it at all.
Right. Well, no, the law can't be.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm saying I don't know why the government gets to decide what I can do or cannot do with my own life. But let me back up a step for you, because I'll disagree with you again.
Yeah, but it would if there's no law against it, there's laws against murder or manslaughter.
There would have to be statute. There has to be statute. There has to be statute.
How would you know?
Once
there was
again,
statute
the lawyer
from the video saying I love you, I am choosing to end this now, whatever.
Have you heard of deep fakes?
Okay, so
we're getting to Clintonian levels
right
of assisted suicides
right
here.
right because no one knew that this
a deep fake is an artificial intelligence assisted mapping. Like so I could find some video of someone we'll say doing something illicit, and then I could use AI to take a picture of your face and to put it on there to
Manchurian Candidate stuff.
Yeah, except it's real and it's very good. Right now, and it's only going to get better over the next couple of years.
So I guess I'm going to be in trouble
So
here.
especially with all this live streaming we're doing.
So let's back this up though. So you say that everyone would agree that if a person is texting while driving and hits my kid, for example, that I want them held accountable. I'll back up. No, I really don't care if that person was texting or driving. The fact that they went across the line and hit my kid, I want them held accountable for that. I could care less what they were doing 5 minutes beforehand.
And you are
if they were eating, if they were drinking something, if they were slapping their kid in the back seat, if they were yelling at their kid in the back, they were lighting up a cigarette. I don't care what they were doing. The bottom line is
now your kid's more dead because they were texting.
Exactly. My kid's not any more dead because you were texting than they would have been if you were reaching to go grab your burger.
And I don't disagree with you when it comes to legislating. It is different. You just described you're one of maybe out of 50 people that agree with that statement. There are people that want someone to burn more
that's because the other 49 have been propagandized by a bunch of congressmen.
I don't disagree well, by society in many ways. I don't disagree with that statement. But that's why I'm saying is that legislating in the real world, you cannot ignore those elements of it. Now, maybe you should. It would be nice if you did, and we can argue with that, okay? I am telling you what is, not what should be, okay? And I'm telling you, so getting back to you shouldn't have to pass a law to allow for doctor-assisted suicide. It should just happen. You might be right, but I can tell you in 2016 it was legislation. And in every other state that it is, I think isn't there like 8 states now or something like that? There's some states that you can do it, can't you?
Yeah,
do what?
Maine just passed
Dr. Assist.
Oregon.
I think there's like 8 states.
Yeah, but you know what? I've talked to some politicians and cops out there, and the amount of murders happening, just rampant murder through that doctor-assisted suicide slippery slope, it's off the charts. I'm making fun of you.
I know you are, but I'm saying they wrote legislation for it, so it isn't. Sometimes there's just this.
Hide your kids, hide your wife. They killing everybody around here.
That was good.
Okay.
Listen, Q. A cat can have kittens in an oven. That don't make them biscuits.
There's that humor you wanted, right?
This is true. It don't make them biscuits. So
that's the most true statement QX has ever
you
said.
Cannot.
That is a true statement. That is a true statement.
You can't argue
I want
with
some
it.
biscuits now.
Me too.
Not cat
Welcome
biscuits.
to my
though.
every single day. I wake up and go, man, I want some biscuits.
And
right
I know
now.
there
I wish I
aren't
was
many
in
good ones
Georgia.
around here, if any.
Oh man, what's the name of that Bojangles? Bojangles makes
Bojangles
some
is
dang
good,
good
yeah.
biscuits.
And they throw them out like whatever
Yeah.
biscuits are there. If
Oh.
they've been sitting longer than 20 minutes, out.
Okay,
Get
I
build
gotta
the
ask
wall
you,
and throw the biscuits over it.
who makes the better biscuits, Church's Chicken or Popeyes?
Popeyes.
Why can't we
Better
get
than
either of those
Church's?
places here?
I go with Popeyes over Church's. But the best biscuits are homegrown, man.
Are we
Oh,
too far
absolutely.
I'll tell you
north
what,
to
I'd
get
be
those
really
places
happy
here?
if there was a
not
Popeyes
homemade.
chicken in the area. I'd be real happy.
Would you?
Oh yeah, that's good chicken.
Well, you got to talk to the 10.
There is one in St. Paul.
Oh yeah, there's a
I think
couple.
it
I
might
better
be-
watch out or I'll get Hillaried by the 10.
Yeah, right.
Eyes on.
And the 10. No one would believe the 10 from outside of this area unless they had to experience it.
I know. They're great. They're like an
There's
evil
new-
cabal.
There's news articles on West Central Tribune about them.
Well, but no one watches. No one
Yeah.
listens to West Central Tribune.
Believe it or not,
That's kind of true.
Yeah, we did make it into the New York Times.
We-
Our little town.
Why?
Because
Oh,
Trump
yeah.
should come here. That's why.
Yeah.
No, we made it. Well,
I'll
we
avoid
made
the
it a
town for
couple
the
weeks
entire
ago
week if he
because
does,
we're the perfect example of
Tolerance.
tolerance.
Yeah.
That was in the
That'd
New
be
York
great.
Times.
Yeah. That would
I
be.
should come give a speech.
It would be huge.
It was like the guy that wrote it
Huge.
worked for the New York Times, and like his mom grew up in Wilmer or something like that, and he came back to visit her once and said,
Well, apparently
Wilmer
he
is the
didn't go to
perfect-
that meeting that Soder and I went to.
Yeah.
The Democrat politician meeting where the
"Oh, that's right."
where the old Democrat lady turned to the nice inner city representative and asked how the coloreds were integrating into Minneapolis.
Wait,
almost
was
died.
that the meeting you told me about? It was
Yeah.
like last year, right?
It was shortly
A
after
room
Trump came.
full of Democrats. I am not kidding. It could not have been funnier to me.
That is fantastic. You didn't tell me that part. You told me about that meeting, how you guys went to that, and
Okay.
oh,
Yeah, it was nice.
It was
The pride
hilarious.
of
Terrific
Africa.
people, really the best. Tremendous people with upstanding values.
Yeah.
Her heart was in the right place.
They make the best chicken too.
oh, I would have given anything. I would have given anything to be in the room for that one.
Oh gosh, it was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who organized that? It was that she used to be a state rep, right?
She's from this area.
Mary.
Mary Spotsky?
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was one of the
she
organizers.
was the one who organized that meeting. It was great.
Oh, don't you wish?
She was super courteous when we showed up. What
Yeah.
are
She's like,
what
"Who
are
are you? How did you,
doing
hear
here?
about this thing?"
How'd you find out about
The
this,
only people she asked.
How did you find out about this public meeting? Bill?
Yeah. Soda
Let me tell you.
and I tried to go to a young Democratic Socialist gathering.
And they're like, "You guys aren't young."
Well,
I think they were older than us.
Yeah, they were older than us, and like all four of them were standing outside when we showed up. And
Apparently
somebody-
they didn't. Apparently one of them slipped the janitor $20 to let us in. It would be totally okay for us to use the school.
Yeah.
Didn't actually reserve anything.
And the janitor was like, "Yeah, I got $20."
Yeah, as we were leaving, because we weren't in. As we were leaving, the guy who slipped in the $20 was like, "I want my $20 back."
Well, it got redistributed.
The janitor's like, "I don't care. $20 is $20."
So, guys, as usual, the time has flown by with a lot of fun, but I turn into a pumpkin at 9:00. Only because I like to go home and and spend a little bit of quality time with my lovely wife. So,
Well,
and she has Jacob at home, and she needs help with him. So,
well, once again, we appreciate your being here. Thank you. Sorry if we went in too hard on you, but our job is to get you more consistent. We're trying to get you ready. We're trying to get you ready for your reelection campaign. So, so this is your training.
if the people living in my district heard this show, my percentages would be ticking down each time that I meet here. So,
Well,
that's not helping me.
All right, I guess we're gonna have to start some advertising. And
Tim, I would fight to the death for your right to be wrong,
Thank you very much.
and I'd still vote for you, even though we disagree.
There we go. Thank you.
Unless I was running against you.
And you would just tear me down to my roots.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
It's funny though, because
I would
like
spray
Soder
Roundup all over that
apologizes.
campaign.
Soder apologizes for last week, and then you're like, I'm sorry for a little bit rough on you. This is not. First of all, it's been fun.
You think this is abuse?
No, that's what
You
I'm
think
saying.
this is
It's not.
abuse?
I've been
How do
a,
you take the abuse you get on a sit? If you want to work here, close.
That's like a quote from something.
Weaponized
That
it.
was abuse.
That was
That's
an
right.
assault paper clip.
An assault paper clip. But no, this is enjoyable. You guys, if you're going after me, I wasn't smart enough to realize you were going after me.
well, no, nothing
Well, I
but
don't
love.
know.
It's always
everybody.
it's always a lot easier to sit in here when I know that when I drive all the way home, I know that I was the only right person in this room. So
Whatever you
know,
have to tell yourself.
wait, right? As in right leaning or
correct. No, as in correct. Right, as in
Okay.
correct. As in justified. As in righteous. So no, you guys are a lot of fun. What I like is so I know that this is about a gang of libertarians here, and libertarians always presume that they're right no matter what. How do I know that? Because you said we're the only ones that aren't hypocrites in the entire universe. Something like that you said last week.
No, I think my exact quote was, "If you are going to be consistent, you have to become a libertarian."
Right. And politics is not consistent. You can't make it. You cannot make it consistent.
Yeah, you can.
No,
You can say the government shall not infringe on the rights of the individual. The only time the government will ever intervene is when you infringe upon the rights of another. That is totally 100% consistent.
not consistent to the Constitution, but okay.
just
How
had a
not?
thought.
What's that?
You want to give him some
The
shit?
Constitution created an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch to get all over your rights.
Well, what do I know? I'm only 2/3 of a person anyway, so.
That was I was 3/5. I was told that was actually created by the abolitionists. At least that's the rewriting of history that I've been told. That they were concerned about the southern states gaining too much power, the abolitionists. So they were the ones who
I
recommended.
know the
Yeah,
reason.
the southern states wanted black people recognized as whole persons for the purpose of electing representatives,
Right.
And for tallying up the number of people there. So,
Right.
yeah, that was the measure.
It was you Northerners that said no, absolutely not. He is only 3/5 of a person. It's okay.
I'm up north.
It was
Keep it
for
much
your
more north.
benefit, though.
Huh?
It was for your benefit, though.
That's how. Yeah.
We did it for you.
We did it for you, man. But Tim, no, thank you very much. We appreciate it, guys.
Thanks,
and,
guys.
And with that, concludes our show. Thank you guys very much for being here. We really appreciate it. We also want to have everybody that's here, if you guys are looking for another great show to jump to, definitely go see our man, Church of Failure.
I love that guy.
Church is actually fantastic. We were on his show, 2 weeks ago, Soder?
I don't remember. It's all a blur to me.
Yeah, but we discussed the role of black comics, which actually was pretty neat. I guess
Who's the best black comic? Who's your favorite black comic?
Ooh, man.
Don't you have a cousin or uncle or something?
That doesn't count.
Wait, comedian?
Yeah.
No, it's comics as in
comic books.
Comic books.
Damn
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, no, I don't
Because
care.
Church's show is Gospel of Comics.
I was
Yeah.
talking about who's your favorite black comedian.
Favorite black comedian? God, I'd probably go back to like
Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor. I probably would, or Red Fox. That was back when comedy was great, and the reason why I liked it so much is there was absolutely zero SJW involved. I mean, like
I
they
like
just
Bernie Mac.
Bernie Mac, he was in that same ilk. Like he just put it out there, and like there was, if you didn't like it, you didn't like it, but there was nobody Me Too in Bernie Mac. I mean, anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone.
Yeah, we got to wrap that up.
Yeah, we got to wrap that up. But bottom line is that he wasn't having to watch what he had to say, and I think you cannot be a comedian, a true comedian, when you're constantly having to watch how you say what you say. So, and Mr. Scott says make blimpies great again. I agree with you 100% that we need to bring blimpies back.
Maybe that's next week's stream. Blimpies versus
I tell you what, Nick, if you show up to the show next week, I will bring you a foot-long blimpies.
Please don't make promises like that in public.
I will bring. Are you a cold cut guy or a meatball guy?
Cold cut.
Okay, so there we go.
You bring me a meatball sub and you're going to be wearing it.
But guys, thank you guys so much. We appreciate you guys. Be sure to like the channel. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Thank you, Sub Sandwich. We appreciate Super Sandwich. Appreciate you guys supporting the channel. Thank you guys to my esteemed guests today. Been a great show. Been a lot of fun. I'm always amazed how quick 2 hours goes by. But always remember, stay in the fight, and we will look forward to seeing you guys next week. Same time, same place, 7 o'clock Central Time, right here. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you next week.
Peace.